Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you all about the builds that I've been playing for the first week or so of 10.2 PTR as Warlock. Now, disclaimer off the bat here, all the builds are subject to change. They can change with any build coming out, any tweaks or any tuning the Blizzard does, any changes. This can all change. But I think it gives a pretty good idea of what Warlock looks like so far, heading into like week 2 of 10.2 PTR and just like later raid testing, all that kind of stuff. Plugs, week course, add-ons, all down below if you want. Twitch and Discord links are free for you guys, like always. And also, shout out to my patrons, again, before we get too far in the video. For all support on Patreon, guys, thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking for the 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet, the tier 3 Patreon rank or higher gets early access to that. It should be going up about a week or so once this week's raid testing is over. If you're interested in that or anything, links up here to all that. TikTok, Instagram, Patreon stuff, yada, yada. And yeah, let's just jump right on in. And also, we're going to talk about each spec tree here. The class tree is the same. You play the DPS talents and the eyeball, and that's it. But each spec has different builds and things that are emerging because of tier bonuses and, well, general changes. All right, so getting into Affliction here. Now, like I said, the class tree, it is what it is. Doesn't really change a whole lot. You play the DPS talents, all that kind of stuff. Well, there's that. Now, there's a handful of AF builds here I want to hit on. Now, a good bit of them are pretty similar to what you've seen on retail for the most part. Some are playing Vile Taint. Some are playing Phantom Singularity now, with the recent changes, Singularity being a little better in single target on certain fights. It's seeing some play in certain builds. However, so top to bottom here, this is the first build that I've been playing. Now, this build does indeed, you're not seeing incorrectly here, it does not play Dark Glare. So due to your new like 2-piece, 4-piece for Affliction and all that, extending dots, whenever you cast Soul Rot, you get 3 dot extensions, more Rapture damage and all that. Dots being active for a longer period of time benefits Haunted Soul. Not necessarily more, making it like better than Dark Glare and Visionary necessarily, but you're losing Class Trinket next patch, which, you know, sort of devalues Dark Glare a bit, plus devalues Visionary. And once again, your dots last longer. Now, I've tested this build here, and in certain polls and tests, it seems like the best option, if not very, very close to the other two builds here. These two builds being number 2, Malevolent Visionary, single target Vile Taint. This plays Dark Glare. Actually doesn't play, I should remove the Malevolent Visionary clause here, but it's just Dark Glare, 2 points in Gluttony, 1 point in Soul Rot, and 1 point in Vile Taint. You're playing Vile Taint over Singularity here, and you're playing 2 points in Gluttony to basically sync your Soul Rot to your Vile Taint. Now, 2 points in Gluttony gives you right around a 34-ish second cooldown on Soul Rot. It won't sync like perfectly with Vile Taint, but it's close enough. We're going to hold Vile Taint for 3 to 4 seconds to sync with your Soul Rot to give max extensions every single, you know, basically dot window every half a minute, right? This build plays just Dark Glare, no Visionary, Dread Touch Row, Haunt, Crescendo. Obviously, if you're playing this, you're playing this 100%. And that's pretty much the gist of it. It's half a minute Rapture window build. Your Dark Glare is around 225-ish here because you're pushing back your Vile Taint a little bit each time for Soul Rot, which desyncs a little bit. Not the end of the world, but, you know, the build feels pretty good. Basically, every half minute, you've got big Rapture damage with your tier set, giving you 3 increases to your Rapture. Or it gives you 3 Raptures with a 50% damage increase, which is whenever you cast your Soul Rot, which is every half minute, right? So pretty strong there. The third build here, this is going to be a Malevolent Visionary-esque build. This is playing Phantom Singularity and 1 point in Gluttony. Now, 1 point in Gluttony gives you basically pretty much exactly a 45-second cooldown on Soul Rot. Now, if you've seen the more recent Sims or Affliction and things, there's a problem with the APLs, and basically, Singularity is better in single target over the course of a fight, even currently on retail, if you're getting the same amount of Dark Glares. The thing is, if you're playing Singularity, I mean, currently on retail, you'll cast it on cooldown. So basically, you know, like 10 seconds into the fight, 55-ish, a minute 35-ish, and like 215 roughly, which means your Dark Glares push back 15, 20-ish seconds, which means like 230 Dark Glare, 225 Dark Glare, and like 435 Dark Glare, if you sort of follow what I'm saying. So as long as you don't lose a Dark Glare, comparatively to the Vile Taint build, Singularity has been doing a bit better in certain settings. A bit Kilton dependent, but overall, not bad. The point of this build, though, same thing as the Vile Taint build, you're syncing basically every Soul Rot with your other dot-based cooldown, being, you know, 2 points in Gluttony, half-minute Soul Rot, half-minute Vile Taint. This build, 1 point in Gluttony, 1 point in Visionary, 45-second cooldown on Soul Rot, 45 on Singularity. So both builds pretty good. They've honestly all been a wash for the most part. And in the end, if this build here, like the Haunted Soul no Dark Glare build with just Soul Rot, is like as the same as these two builds here, the Vile Taint build with 2 in Gluttony and the, you know, the PS 1 Gluttony build here, you'll play the Dark Glare build all the time. But unsurprisingly, with our Class Trinket being removed and the Dark Glare buffs, the nerfs that came in sometime in 10.1. Aff's main cooldown, being Dark Lair, is barely even worth hitting, once again. Also because you're forcing the soul rot this tier, the tier bonus. So these are the three I'm looking at in single target. Obviously, if you want to play like a cleave build, you can just pull, you go to like Soul Flame by pulling these 2 points if you want. If you want Seed and Soul, you can pull, Dark Virtuosity and go Seed and then into Soul if you want. So they're all customizable. The main point, these can change a little bit of appear talent-wise, but the main, I guess, capstone-esque talents, a few combinations you can play here. Now, when you're getting into like more Mythic Plus builds here, Doom Blossom Grimreach is still very good. This is a build that's played predominantly in M+ right now. I mean, in most M+ settings. Doom Blossom just insane with the Seed and so mass AOE damage. Grimreach still very good. You're losing your class trinket, but it's still a very strong 2-minute cooldown on AOE. You're playing Vile Taint, and you're still playing Soul Rot, being your tier bonus. Now, Aff tier bonus doesn't really do a whole lot. AOE really doesn't do anything at all. But in like these settings where you're going to Rapture, it does a little bit. So it's sort of applicable in like low pull count, I guess, packs or mobs and plus. And on bosses, I mean, hey, there's some applicability there. But you can play a mix of different things too. I've seen the full Grimreach, Dark Harvest row being played recently. I've seen some Haunted Soul stuff with Doom Blossom and Grimreach. And for the most part, I typically just end up playing Grimreach and Doom Blossom. They're just really good. Doom Blossom and Grimreach. They're both really good. And universally applicable in plus. So the major changes for Aff come to the single target build, I guess, more raid build. And in the end, again, if there's a world where this build is about the same as these two, you're going to typically always play the build that plays your cooldown, being Dark Lair. 1, for ease of play. Number 2, I mean, hey, it's a button you can hit. It's a cooldown. But in the end, they've all performed pretty similar. We'll see where it goes. Once they fix the Absolute Corruption bug with our tier bonus, we may play more with the no Dark Lair build and council-based fights and see where it's at. But they've all felt pretty similar. If you think back to Vault of the Incarnates farm, this build before the Clash Trinket was actually our best build, not playing Dark Lair. So if you like this build, great. It might be back. If you didn't, well, unfortunately, it may be back as well. So getting into Destruction here. Now, Destro does have the universal, if you want 2-minute Dark Lair, or 2-minute, Infernal, you can play Grand Warlock's Design. If you don't want it, you pull this point and you just put it over here in Burned Ashes, depending on the fight duration and all of that. Now, when it comes to the single target builds, I have been playing, this will change, this is not bugged out here. There's one. There we go. Now we're working. There we go. In single target, I've run sims with my current retail character. I've disabled the tier bonus, and I've simmed Channel Demon Fire with Raging Demon Fire. I've simmed CDF with Conflagration. I've simmed Pure Soulfire, Pure Conflagration, Pure CDF, all the combinations. The highest combination without our current tier in Aberrus Equipped, which requires CDF, the highest talent combination in single target is currently Soulfire, like this, going into Ruin, from what I've seen. You're taking these points out of here, 1, 2, 3, and you're going 1, 2, 3, and these points somewhere else over here are being used for Ruin. Now, if you're not a fan of Soulfire, which, to be fair, it doesn't feel as bad anymore, because you're not trying to weave Madness Chaos Bolts anymore, because that's pretty much gone. Soulfire has felt fine in a single target. I sort of hate to say it, but I mean, I like to say it, and I hate to say it, because it feels cool to lob a 500,000, crit Soulfire, but at the same time, so Soulfire's been the best build that I've seen play-wise and sim-wise and all that. But the second best build is the Conflagration of Chaos build. Not playing Soulfire, no Decimation, no Ruin. You're playing Shadowburn, just like a bridge, basically, to get the Conflagration of Chaos. You're playing 2 points in Scalding Flames, nothing in Improved Immolate, comparatively to this build, which is playing 1 point in Scalding Flames, get more into Ruin. Both the builds are pretty close in single target, and if you're not a Soulfire fan, I mean, once again, you can go into Conflagration of Chaos. But if you're a fan of CDF, well, unfortunately, it's bad next tier. If you're not a fan, well, awesome. We're not playing it anymore next tier. So that's that. Both these builds are indeed playing Dimensional Rift here. I've simmed Rift versus Chaos Incarnate on retail for my character as well. Rift is behind Incarnate in single target by about 2.5k DPS. They need to buff it on PTR, buff the tier side as well. But with a 2-piece and 4-piece being Rift-based and giving you more cooldowns and things, I'm playing Rift in single target. It's felt good to hit. It's a fun button to smash. It needs more damage. It needs to buff the 4-piece, the Fire Portal substantially, and just buff the ability in general. But yeah, this is what I've been playing in single target, one of these two builds, and it's felt fine. Not having Madness around makes the spec feel it feels sort of bland. You just build shards and spend them, but I mean, if given 1 or 2 options, keeping Madness around with no duration increase or getting this, I think this is likely the better solution. They need to add a haste, like cast time reduction, probably to Chaos Bolt on here, but baby steps. right? Now, getting into the Havoc Cleave build, one thing you'll notice, this does change from Rift to Chaos Incarnate. Now, I have not run Sims here, because you really can't. I don't believe yet on PTR, but I can pretty much almost guarantee that Chaos Incarnate is still better in like permanent Havoc Cleave settings than playing Dimensional Rift, even with your tier bonus being the way that it is. Your tier bonus, I mean, it does feed into Rift gameplay and everything, but guaranteeing max master benefit from your Chaos Bolts and whatever else you're cleaving, Shadowburn Havoc at times you're playing that build, is unsurprisingly very strong in Havoc cleave-based settings. Now, I've seen builds that have gone like this. They've gone into Scalding Flames, into Improved Immolate. I've seen builds that go like this instead. They pull these points, they go over here, here, and here, into cleave builds. I've leaned more recently towards builds like this, with Conflagration of Chaos, and obviously EP and stuff. But the main thing, you're grabbing Havoc, you're grabbing Pandemonium, you're grabbing Rolling Havoc here. In your sustained 2-target cleave, like Council of Dreams we did a few days ago in PTR testing. I actually played this build, a similar build at least, not with Rolling Havoc, but this build here in single target. I played this on Igura, I believe, the second boss, the Shadowburn down the spears. So some Shadowburn applicability in the raid so far, but for the most part, Conflagration of Chaos is just good in the first place. It's a passive ability, does more damage. Either way, the Havoc Cleave build's the main thing. You're playing Rolling Havoc again. You're playing Chaos Incarnate, I think, over Rift, even with your bonus being built around Rift. You just don't have one. Cleave, maybe a design thing, I don't know. And yeah, you can play this with Improved Immolate and Scalding Flame stuff, where you can pull these three and just go into Shadowburn and, you know, Conflagration of Chaos. So both are fine. In the end, they probably will seem pretty similar. If you're like cleaving constantly with like Shadowburns on ads that are dying, probably a little better. If not, if it's sustained cleave, quite possibly to Scalding Flames and Improved Immolate, but we'll see where it goes. I will mention as well that I played Mayhem in, I believe, this build a few days ago on Council of Dreams, which was the sustained 3-target cleave fight. Felt very good. Just mobs jumping back and forth a bunch. Mayhem just procced across the room. We were launching bolts 60 yards, but it was a passive proc. Mayhem has more RNG to it. It's basically uncontrolled cleave, but it can chain Rolling Havoc for a very long time with good procs. It basically has a very high end, but a very low end if you low roll versus high roll. So either way, big thing to drive home here. Playing Rolling Havoc again, I guess, meaning cleave-based settings, or just most settings where you're cleaving, and you are playing likely Chaos Incarnate over Rift. And to be fair, you did play Rolling Havoc a little bit last year in certain cleave settings, depending on the fight, but no longer CDF, so thank God. The final build here is AOE Grand Warlock's design. We are not playing CDF again. This is going to be, at least where I've been playing, in mass AOE, like in Plus and things. Rain of Fire into Pyrogenics and Inferno. I mean, the big thing here, like, you've gone back into you've basically done this. You've gone from playing this, you've taken these points 1, 2, 3, and put them 1, 2, 3 back into Rolling Havoc and back into EP, so a shorter conflict cooldown. Rolling Havoc once again, still have Rain of Fire, still have Inferno. They did not add a Rain of Fire damage increase passively, like outside of just Chaosbringer nerfs to the raw percent damage increase here yet. Hopefully it happens next build, we'll see. But unfortunately with this build here, if you want to play 2-minute Inferno with, you know, Avatar and Ritual and stuff, and Chaosbringer, which you mean you're playing, you don't get your tier bonus node here, Dimensional Rift and Chaos Incarnate. Now, I mean, I've seen some just end up pulling Grand Warlock's design and going into Rift here. But honestly, the issue is, if you're in AoE and M+, you're going to want Chaos Incarnate a lot more than Rift likely anyways, because Rift is single target based. So here is one of the problems with Destro's tier set. Rift feels great in raiding, but if you're in like Mythic Plus or Mass AoE or sustained like Havoc Cleave, Rift is not very good. So it's cool thematically, fun to hit, but there's cleave problems, there's talent, you know, attribution problems. There's a lot of issues here with the bonus. Cool in the end, but the fact that you have to choose the actual node to get the working tier bonus makes things pretty awkward. So things might change with this build. I wouldn't be surprised to see some pull out of like Avatar or Grand Warlocks to go into here. But once again, I mean, like, you're probably playing Chaos Incarnate at that point anyways, and we haven't done that on retail. So Destro with his tier set in an odd spot. But to wrap it up, if you enjoyed playing Shadow Demon Fire, unfortunately it's gone. But if you didn't like it, like most of us, hey, you're back to Conflagration of Chaos or Soulfire in single target. And finally, we have Destruction. Now, there are a handful of builds here as well I want to go over, but I mean, honestly, they're still pretty similar to what we played before. Not a whole lot's really changed. Now, yes, there's been the whitelisting, blacklisting of Tyrant, and Reign of Tyranny, and Nether Portal, and Gul'dans, and Ner'zhul's, and Pitlord being nerfed, all that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to be put in a bad mood tonight. But, So for the Portal Cleave build, I basically kept the same thing for the most part. I have a point over here in Volatile Fiends. It might be better suited in like, I don't know, maybe like a point in Bell and Steel or like somewhere else. I'm not really sure. The bomber that it spawns is pretty good. You're not imploding, you're not playing the bombers with talent, but the baseline bomber it spawns does a decent bit of damage. So it might be worth it in single target. Haven't played that much with it, but the gist of this build is the same as it was before. Portal, and then Ner'zhul's, and the Gul'dan's, Tyrant, and the Ram of Tyranny, and Sack Souls. I've seen some playing like Antoran and Expendables. I don't think it's as good anymore, or as good, but in like the single target build, but you know, that is that. Now, if you're looking at the Nether Portal Cleave build here, not a whole lot really changes. You're coming out of Umbral, going back into Imp Gang Boss. You're playing Implosion, shifting points from Sack Souls over to Antoran and Expendables. And it, once again, is the gist of the Portal Cleave build you're playing on retail. Now, I don't think this build here, the single target ones, I don't think this is the best build we have for Demo in single target right now. Maybe if you're getting Power Infusion and like Bloodlust and things, but you're not probably getting PI as Demo anymore because Demo has been obliterated. I think the best build for Demo, likely, if not very close to the best build, is currently Immutable Hatred Grand Warlock's design. This build, I mean, Grand Warlocks, the change to a flat CDR on Tyrant with GWD in this patch is a buff to this ability for Demo. It's a nerf to Destro, and no, AF doesn't care. But it never had baseline exact 1 minute Tyrant. It was like a minute 8, minute 10, minute 12. 1 minute Tyrant, it's a decent buff to GWD. If Ram of Tyranny is uncapped again or changed, it'll beat it out, but it's not bad. It does help with sustained damage. You're Tyranting every minute versus a minute and a half. And Portal without Tyrant extensions and damage amps and the changes from Ner'zhul's and Pitlord being obliterated and all that, I think Hatred is likely a little better. It's still not great. It wasn't buffed or anything, but I think it's just better than this row. I think this row is currently dead for the most part in single target. I could be wrong, but dummy testing has sort of proven that as well. So you're playing Hatred, you're playing Tyrant with Grand Warlock's design, and honestly, like, you're playing Vile Fiend, holding it for every Tyrant, being 45 seconds in a minute. This playstyle here actually feels like surprisingly okay. I mean, yes, there's a million caps on Tyrant and everything else, but like, putting all the weird changes aside, you're Tyranting every minute, you hold your Vile Fiend for every Tyrant, every other Tyrant has a Grimoire in it, your Felguard's doing more damage, you're casting Strength on cooldown, you're just doing damage. You're just casting Tyrants and casting Demons and making pets. It feels sort of generic and bland, but like, in a sense, that's sort of, it's cool at the same time. It's hard to put into words. If you played Demo towards the end of All the Incarnates, when this build was actually pretty good on like Razziath and things, it feels the same way. It doesn't feel terrible. I think the more powerful build plays Ram of Tyranny and other abilities, but we'll see where tuning goes. I think this is the best build currently in single target, and there's that. And if you're looking to play us in Cleave, a few things change. You're still playing the same points over here. You can play Guillotine, but honestly, I think it's still like more of a raid build with, like, you know, implosions thrown in certain spots. You're playing Implosion, Volatile Fiends, shifting points out of Bell and Steel and out of well, Vile Fiend here. Now, for the most part, you might want to pull a point out of Cavitation and throw it in Bell and Steel. I haven't simmed this. I think it's just likely a little better still. But I mean, for the most part, if you want to play this build in Cleave, I probably just start here with Implosion, Volatile Fiends. There's a world where you may play Bombers and AOE and Plus, like in this build here, being the Guillotine build. And AOE, like this, the baseline Bomber from this does like a lot of damage in AOE, like 5% from just this talent here. This also buffs Bomber's baseline though, and Bomber's shard cost has been removed in 10.1.5 or something as well. Bombers very well could be the play over Strength in like Guillotine M plus builds, which this build is here. Besides that though, I mean, you're playing Guillotine over Hatred, and if you look at it, I mean, it's the same thing pretty much. Like, here's the Hatred Cleave build, and here's Guillotine. What changes? Okay, and this can be either Ram of Tyranny or Grand Warlocks. I'm leaning towards Ram of Tyranny a little bit in plus, because like, you're a wet noodle if you have like no Ram of Tyranny and nothing else in single target. And in the end, Tyrant's still pretty eh. I likely would play Rain M plus, but I mean, either way, we'll see where that goes. Bombers very well could be the play over Strength and Mythic Plus, but yeah, I think the best build now in single target is probably Immutable Hatred, Grand Warlocks. This build's like not horrendous either, but it's not as good, I don't think, anymore with the portal changes and the nerfs and the Tyrant interactions being broken and Tyranny being capped. This build, Demo in general, like, it needs pretty big buffs, but this build in general needs a lot of help too. Some removal of caps, maybe some changes like the capping of abilities and all that, but we'll see where it goes. Hopefully next week's build maybe holds some changes that make things a bit more exciting for Demo, but yeah, with that being said, those are the demo builds that are, I guess, in my opinion, probably the best currently in 10.2 PTR. So thanks for watching, guys. That wraps it up. Hopefully it clarified any questions you might have had about, I guess, just Warlock builds heading into 10.2. I mean, PTR stuff. Like, once again, I want to clarify this is very early PTR, but I've gotten a lot of questions over the past week or so on stream and on YouTube and things. What builds are you playing? Why? How is Stetcher looking? Are you playing CDF? So hopefully this helps clarify things so far. But once again, keep in mind, this will all literally change in one day if Blizz pushes tuning, buffs, nerfs, or changes, whatever, what have you. I'm curious to see if Destro and Aff and even Demo stick with the same tier sets they have right now. Because like, they're not bad necessarily, but Destro and Aff don't really work in AOE and M+, and Demo is like not synergistic. It's cool, but very undertuned. So waiting for this week's build to see what happens. If that changes, these builds might change, but for the most part, yeah, that's that. So like always, week wars add-ons down below. Links to Twitch and Discord will all for free for you guys. And once again, before we end the video, I want to give a huge shout out again to my patrons. For all support on Patreon, guys, legitimately thank you a million times. Like always, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. And once again, the 10.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet will indeed be live probably in a week and a half or so on Patreon for the tier 3 Fellow Guard rank or higher. So, yeah, I'll be honest, we didn't get any changes this, I guess, well, last week, whenever you're watching this video, at the end of week 2, I guess week 1 of raid testing to Warlock. But I don't think, with PTR coming out initially on a Thursday evening, I don't think even if changes are planned, or they probably, think they need to make some changes, they weren't probably, fleshed out and drawn out and just finished in time for like the week 1 PTR build to have them. So hopefully this week we get some clarification on Demo stuff, maybe some buffs, Destro, Aff, even Demo, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Demo might not feel the best, but in the end, if Demo's just tuned properly or just, buffed a bunch, it might not feel great, but if it does good damage, you're still going to play it. So we'll see where it goes. With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.